Nothing makes you feel the gray hairs creeping out of your head than a by-the-numbers anime that you've seen hundreds of times before it has ever even aired. Kaguya-sama Love is War is a show about two high school students who like each other but, wait for it, refuse to admit it. The only real twist is that their refusal to be honest is turned into a game where the first one to confess loses, but like one of those secret games you play without your opponent knowing because communication, what is that? If you can't already tell, I'm tired of this story. I spent all of middle school and high school consuming anime and manga, so now at age 24, I've seen this trope done to death. And then the adding of the first one to be honest is a loser stake just underlines how ridiculous this and other stories like it are. Now, for a disclaimer, as I know many people like it, I'm not exactly upset this show exists. Every anime is someone's first, and if you're not tired of the will they won't they narrative that plagues practically every medium, Japanese or no, then good for you. But I can't say the same for myself, and ultimately I'm here to explain why Kaguya-sama bothers me. My biggest problem besides trope exhaustion is the framing of the story. Love is war, and the fact that you're a loser if you admit to having feelings for someone is bad enough, but how Kaguya and Miyuki implement it is even worse. In episode 4, Miyuki says that he's against hurting others for the sake of self-interest, but that's what he and Kaguya have been doing for the entire show. In their game, the idea is to force the other person to confess their feelings first. And to do that, you need to put your supposed romantic interest into a vulnerable and weak state without any means of escape. I say supposed because when you truly care for someone, you don't want to see them distressed if you can help it. But that's the win state for them. On top of that, in the process of cornering each other, they are often cruel, like manipulating the other's emotions, leaving the other person out, or purposely trying to make each other jealous. These people are not in love or even in like. They are trying to take their crush's dignity for their own amusement because there's no reason to do any of this except for selfish pride and because it's fun. I know these aren't very good people. They're not meant to be as sweet and as kind-hearted as Fujiwara, but even still, they remind me of real-life toxic relationships. Communication is key when you're a couple, but the narrative can't point it out because it'll diminish how satisfying them getting together is supposed to be. Sure, the narrator and other characters point out that these two are acting against their own best wishes for flimsy reasons, but nothing is changing or developing from it 5 episodes in. It seems the show wants to keep its one gag running as long as possible. And even if these comments result in both Kaguya and Miyuki putting aside their game and confessing to each other in the end, my point will still stand. Because, like many others, the narrative is painting becoming a couple as the final end state. Now, I know that the manga is ongoing, and even though after a mere 136 chapters the leads finally kissed, it's said that the mangaka is a fan of rom-coms where couples get together halfway through, so there may be another 100 to come. But the anime is only getting 12 episodes, and with the way it's shaping up, either the two will still be just as they were when the show started, or it'll end with them only beginning their romance. Again, not only is the structure so overdone, but it's also a lie. Getting together is not an end state. It's an end of the I like them, do they like me torment, and more importantly, a start of learning to be a unit. Being single and pining for someone and having a significant other are very different. You need to learn how to work together, get to know each other more deeply, determine if your life goals and aspirations line up, and even simply if you can get along. Not to mention, learning to trust someone more deeply than others in your life and being responsible with the trust that you are given in turn. This is why Nana is still one of my favorite series of all time. It took the time to intimately explore the relationship stages of multiple couples while having their own will they won't they with Ren and Nana. They're simply more applicable and resonate more with those who've been in romantic relationships because not all anime fans are high school students. There's plenty of people like me who grew up on anime and are feeling alienated by the medium because it's still mainly catering to our high school selves. This is one of the reasons why I found Chivalry of a Failed Knight to be more enjoyable than Ass War. Aside from not being as boring as fully reading a website's term of service, Chivalry actually cared about exploring their main characters as a couple and how their different natures coincided and conflicted. It still had many of the same tropes as Ass War, even being oddly similar in story beats, but what made me give it a 7 was how it used those plot points to explore the main couple. From misunderstandings resulting from not wanting to make the first move like in Kaguya-sama, to simply discussing your stance on sex before marriage. Chivalry ends up being richer emotionally and psychologically than many shows I see. This is also why I can't rewatch School Rumble. I found it laugh out loud hilarious previously, but now the humor can't drown out my annoyance with the main gag. At least Emma was trying to confess her feelings, but the constant attempts and failures being played over and over prevented me from being able to even make it past the first episode. Again, I've seen the structure before, and the problem isn't that I've already seen the show and know all the gags, as I rewatch all of my favorite media multiple times. I just don't want to sit through the same trope every season until I can't read subtitles anymore. The best parts of Kaguya-sama come when the focus is taken off the main gag, which seems to be why it's so hyped right now. As I was literally falling asleep watching, the character who'd wake me up was Fujiwara. Yes, her clearly pandering ED was endearing, but it's those moments where we dig past her ditzy epidermis to her darker and conniving layers that give me the most enjoyment. Although it is notable that her biggest role in the story is to act as a wild card that the author can play when the characters are getting too close to confessing. It's also troubling that in the opening explanation of the show's stance on romance, it's stated that relationships operate with one person giving the love and the other merely receiving it, and that the person wielding the cruel power is a girl. And she's not only wielding the power, she also has her boyfriend on a chain leash as she stomps on his head while literally laughing maniacally. This seems far more pandering to red pillars and incels than Shield Hero. I'll leave it at that. Overall, Kaguya-sama is a symptom of a problem in anime and storytelling in large, not so much the problem. Really, my biggest criticism of the show is that it's boring. Situations change, but the beats are the same. And when the show branches away from the love war, it just serves to underline how uninteresting the central conflict is. Again, I was literally falling asleep and considered stopping by episode 2. The only reason I continued was to give the show that mythical try many said I should have granted Goblin Slayer. But from episode 1, I knew what I was getting, and Fujiwara was neither cute or creepy enough to prove me wrong. But the reason why I'm talking about Kaguya-sama is the problem I have with romantic stories as a whole, that they mainly focus on the pre-relationship point. The stories often end with the leads getting together or reuniting after most of the narrative apart. It's not just a rom-com issue, it's a genre-wide plague. But one that hits rom-coms hard because many of what gets published in this category adhere to this trope. I'm certain it's not impossible to write a rom-com where the comedy isn't in how the main couple can't even be a couple yet. Hell, we know it's not considering the wonderful I can't understand what my husband is saying. But they're the exception. Look, I'm 24. I'm not pining for my first crush. I've been in relationships. I know there's so much more after the first kiss. And I'm an anime fan. An anime fan who is feeling left out by one of her favorite mediums because it values known cash cows over creativity, putting the minimum amount of spins on tropes so that they can repackage them as new and hope no one cares enough to notice. I can't mindlessly watch whatever is pumped out. For writers in general, there is an untapped market for the taking of people who want to see love continue to bloom after becoming intimate. Will they, won't they's and how they fell in love stories are not the only ones worth telling. This is the closest outfit that I had to the school uniforms they wear in the show, so I guess I thought that was appropriate. If you found some of the things that I said interesting and want to keep up with other things that I say, YouTube is not the place to do it. They are actively trying to prevent you from seeing the things that you actually like. Instead, follow this Discord invite link where you'll have access to my content stream of things I'm involved with. You can talk to me in my NotAVampyre crypt when I'm awake, online, and have internet. You can also find me on Twitter at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.